everybody, welcome back. It's another week, it's another wine challenge. So this week I actually took my WSET level 2 exam, so that's my wine exam. So fingers crossed that I've passed that, but it's meant that I've not really had the time to film the video at home. So I thought I'd take full advantage of the sunshine, and I've come to work and I'm doing it in the courtyard. So this week we have a bit of a fan favourite for the shop. This is the Magnoso Crianza. So it's a Rioja, which is something that, to be honest, most people will have had before or at least tried at some point. Now I'm going to debunk Rioja a little bit for you, and it's not just Rioja, it is across Spain and Spanish wine, but you have different levels and different requirements to get that level on the label. So it starts with the Joven or Joven. So that one actually has no aging requirements on it. It's young, it's meant to be drunk young. It's kind of like the basic young wine. You then move on to the Crianza, which is what we've got here today. So the Crianza has to be aged for 2 years. 1 year of that has to be aged in barrels, so oak barrels. And because of that, you'll get a lot of oak flavours coming through. It'll soften the tannins and it'll bring in a little bit of spice or vanilla as well. Step up from the Crianza is the Reserva. A Reserva is aged for 3 years. Now you have to have 1 year minimum in the barrels, and you need to have a minimum of 6 months in the bottle. So obviously to make up the 3 years, they can kind of play around with that a little. And then a bump up again from that is the Gran Reserva. Now the Gran Reserva is 5 years aged, needs 2 years in the barrel and 2 years in the bottle at least. So that's kind of how a lot of Spanish wines are labelled. It'll just help you read the label when you're having a little look in the shop. So we've gone for the Crianza for this week. So that means it does have some oak. It actually says on the label it's 12 months in barrel. So it's had a whole year sat in oak barrels, soaking up all of that delicious flavour, and then it will have had about a year of bottle maturation in there as well. So I did actually suggest that you open this an hour before serving. I have not done that. So what I've done is I've grabbed a decanter from the bar. I'm going to pour about a glassful in and give it a good swill round to try and let it breathe a little bit. So without further ado, let's pop open the bottle. You ready? So as I just said, I'm going to start with my decanter. Put a little bit more. So there's about a glassful in there, a healthy glassful. And I am going to just try and swill it a little bit, try and get a little bit of air into it because I've not had it open. So now to the 5 S's, which are conveniently stuck on this board behind me. So S number 1 is C, so I can see, so it's got quite a nice kind of intense ruby colour. It's not super dark, you can still see your hand through it. It's quite bright when you look through it as well. But it is a really beautiful colour. So S number 2 is Sniff. So I'm definitely getting red fruits. I'm thinking more along the lines of cherry, rather than things like strawberries though. It's slightly less sweet, slightly kind of richer or deeper. S number 3 is Swirl, so I know I kind of just swirled it, but I'm going to swirl it again in the glass. So this should hopefully release a little bit more of the scent for me. And sniff again. I'm getting some nice, obviously the red fruits, but I'm getting some nice subtle kind of spiciness coming through as well. Almost like a slightly peppery vanilla. Cherries and vanilla. Sounds alright, doesn't it? I mean, you can see here, just another C for you. It's got brilliant legs. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but have a look at yours. Alright, and finally onto the final S, the one that we like the best. It is Sip, so cheers. So that first sip, I've got quite a bit of tannin, so I'm just going to let that coat my mouth. So I'm definitely getting quite a lot of tannin from that. The fruit is quite bright, definitely red fruits. I'm definitely feeling like, definitely having cherry coming through. It does have that little spiciness to it, again, slightly peppery, slightly kind of vanilla-y. It does have quite a nice full body to it. It's quite round and feels quite nice and weighty in your mouth. I think it's quite similar to what I could get on the nose. I do reckon that it maybe would have benefited from me being able to open it up a little bit earlier. Quite like the Cabernet Sauvignon that we did in, I think it was week 2, it was really early on in the challenge. That one was quite tannic as well. and then I tried it again the following day and it was so much smoother because it had that little bit more time to breathe. But it is lovely. It's a great Rioja. I'm a fan of Rioja anyway. I have it quite often, but it is a really, really nice one. I'd actually be quite interested to see at some point. I might get myself say the Gran Reserva and kind of tell the difference between the two, because we have the entire range in the shop. So we've got the Coven through to the Gran Reserva. So I'm gonna have a little peek and see what I'm actually supposed to be tasting. Got my trusty laptop. So it says it's all about the balance of cherry red currant and brambles with the toasty richness of oak. So the cherry, you can taste cherry, I can taste cherry anyway, in that I can smell cherry on it. It's definitely kind of like bolder red fruits. It's not sweeter red fruits. Meatier red fruits? Brambles is quite an interesting way of describing the wine. I think I kind of get why they've said brambles. I'm not sure whether it would be something that I would have come up with on my own. And the toasty richness of oak, you've definitely got some oak flavouring going on in there, with hints of vanilla and mature fruits on the nose, with a touch of licorice following through on the palate. Yeah, I mean, definitely a bit of vanilla, and again, that'll come from the kind of oaking that you'll get, the barrel aging. I didn't really get licorice, but there was a slight kind of pepperiness to it, so I can kind of compare the two there. Yeah, all in all, I think it's a pretty accurate description. It is definitely all about the red fruits with a little bit of spice going on in there too. Now, seeing as I'm filming this one at work and not at home, and as I happen to be in the Slaughtered House courtyard, which is amazing by the way, I have treated myself to some goodies from the Slaughtered House takeaway. So I have some Stilton, and I also did a little bit of research on what kind of food would pair well with this, and of course you come up with all the traditional Spanish dishes. You get your patatas bravas, chorizo, your pork, anything kind of like Mediterranean or Spanish, especially tapas would just be amazing. But we do actually have some really nice chorizo in the bar. I tried to make a little flour out of it relatively successfully, and we've got some lovely sun-dried tomatoes as well, so I really think this will be a great pairing for this wine. So I'm going to start with some of the Stilton. I've put it on one of our little toasts. I just think the nuts and that little hint of sweetness with the Stilton and the wine, I think it's all going to work together quite well. A disclaimer I will put out now is that I am not the biggest fan of blue cheese. I don't mind it. I don't mind it in sauces, things like that as well. It's just not generally something that I choose for myself. But I'm going to give it a go. I've been recommended this and it's worth a try, isn't it? So, cheers. Okay. I'm actually quite surprised at that. Not the biggest blue cheese fan, but when you combine that blue cheese with the Rioja, with all the other flavours going on there, and because the wine is still quite full-bodied and it's got a lot of flavour and impact, especially from the oaking in there as well and the tannins, it kind of stands up to the blue cheese quite well, and they kind of cancel each other out. Not so you can't taste either one, but they match up to each other, they pair each other. Oh, there's a giant bee. I'm actually going to go in for another bite of that. Pleasantly surprised. Cheers. See, even now, I've not had this glass out for long, but through whizzing it through that decanter, swirling it in the glass and letting it kind of settle and breathe a little bit, it's already smoothing out quite considerably. And it's really pleasant. You get more of that flavour from the wine because the tannins aren't overshadowing it. If you get time to let it breathe, definitely. That's my little hint. And now it's time for me to destroy the little flour that I made. It's held together relatively well. Use a charcoal cracker for this one. Bit of sun-dried tomato, why not? Oh, I'm excited for this. Cheers. Those warming spices of the chorizo, a little bit of kind of like acidity almost from the sun-dried tomato, really makes the wine kind of sing in the mouth. Because you've got those red fruit flavours going on in there, and they're deeper reds, they're fleshier reds. That tomato, that kind of spice, the warmth that you get from the chorizo, meatiness, roundness. It's a really good combination. I finished my glass already. This went down way too easily. And I'm at work, but I'm going to have a cheeky top off. I have such a hard job. I really do. Well, I've enjoyed this thoroughly. It's another wine that I absolutely love. I don't think there's been a single wine that I haven't enjoyed generally so far. I know we've got amazing quality wine, but does that say more about the wine or me? let me know what you think. It's always really good to get a little bit of feedback and find out how everybody's getting on with the challenge, if they're enjoying it or having fun. Next week is another one which you're probably going to be quite familiar with. We're going for a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. I know a lot of people are going to be really excited about that. It's definitely a favourite both in the shop and in the bar. And the one that we have chosen, I've been told, is particularly nice. So I'll see you all next week. Stay safe, have fun, and enjoy drinking the rest of the bottle. Salud!